I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. Happy Thursday out there. This is a quiet evening. We'll have another quiet evening tomorrow, and then 3 straight days of big-time games, 2 days of NFL games, then Monday night, the national championship game. So going to be doing some previews here, but before we get to that, there is actually some news. It has not been officially finalized yet, but word leaked out this morning that the Giants and John Harbaugh are in contract and negotiations, so it appears he will be the next coach of the Giants. They've even gone so far as to say Todd Monken, who was his offensive coordinator in Baltimore, and possibly the reason he's no longer in Baltimore, is likely to come with him to the Giants. I will say I thought I did this before Tomlin left the Steelers, but I think it would still hold for me. I thought the Giants were the most attractive opening just because they have some good young talent in all the positions on offense except for the line, and in a couple of key positions on defense. I thought that would be kind of promising. John Harbaugh, not my favorite coach, but I can understand why he would be an attractive target for the Giants. What do you think of the hiring? The other thing we heard is Harbaugh, one of his demands was going to be total roster control and picking his own GM, which doesn't bode well for Joe Shane, who you and I have wondered how he hung on to his job. Maybe not for much longer.
Yeah, it feels like the writing's on the wall, doesn't it? I don't know. Honestly, I felt like, to me, the Baltimore job was the best job. And he's the best available coach. I'm not quite sure why it all broke down. You know, his insistence on keeping Monken is sort of what we've heard. And I get it. He's been there. He was there, 13 years, 15 years, some long-ass time. And so I think he felt he earned the right to say, look, we had a down year, but I believe in my guys. And, ownership said no, and so now he's moved on. They've got, if they can keep Andrew Thomas healthy, that I think Joe Tippmann might be the interior lineman they drafted recently. They have with Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson, though I think he's a free agent. Cam Scadaboo strikes me as a John Harbaugh kind of player, but I got to be honest, I fear for Scadaboo's well-being based on how he plays. That being said, if they're going to keep Tyrone Tracy around, that's a good thing too. And they do have some playmakers on defense with Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter. So they can get after the quarterback. It feels like a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a decent, it's a decent landing spot. They obviously have some pass rushers you would like that gives some potential. I think their secondary probably needs a little bit of work. But, when you found yourself a potential quarterback and they still have Jameis under contract, so you have a pretty solid veteran backup. They have 2 decent running backs under contract. They have a couple decent receivers under contract, decent tight end prospect. It's not like the cupboard is bare. When I was looking at some of these openings, like, I know people are high on Tennessee because of Cam Ward, I guess. But Tennessee, the cupboard, not that full. And this felt a lot more full to me.
It does. It feels like they're a couple steps ahead. They just have some better talent all around. And so it makes sense. I am more disturbed about the fact that Monken is following Harbaugh, and I get to hear how the Lions have requested an interview with Arthur Smith.
Oh, geez. Well,
that's, oh my gosh. No Arthur Smith offensive coordinator.
Maybe Arizona will take him for you, or Tennessee.
What is Arthur Smith going to do with Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown? Lord help us if that happens.
Well, the other piece of news I just wanted to bring up, you and I both thought pretty immediately that with Mike Tomlin being gone, it makes perfect sense that the Steelers would go with a new coach and to rebuild, especially since they probably don't have a quarterback. They certainly don't really seem to have one on the roster, but their owner pretty adamant that rebuild is not a word he ever uses. So what do you make of
that? He's delusional. At some point you just look around.
Well, they just call it reconstruction instead of
right. It's that, there's that meme going around where the youngish looking guys are like, yeah, I was standing there talking to the old guys in the gym, and then I realized I'm an old guy at the gym. So that's what's going on in Pittsburgh. You might not want to call it a rebuild, but you've been a 500 team for 10 years now. And that what's going to happen? You're bringing in a new coach. The new coach is going to make some changes, some big changes. There's going to be some impactful things happen, and it's likely to lead to a down season. That being said, with Dante Moore going back to college, we talked about the Dynasty Nerds study they did about the number of games a quarterback plays in college and how it portends for their fantasy success and their NFL success when they go to the NFL. And Dante Moore played in, I think about 25 college games, but he only started like 19 or something. Going back to college and getting those extra 10 games, I think bodes well for Dante Moore.
Especially since he didn't look good in his playoff game.
It makes this draft class horrible for quarterbacks, but it puts it on par with, I think, the Cam Ward class, where basically there's one quarterback and it's debatable if he's worth being picked that high, but you're going to have to pick him that high if you want him. And so it feels like Mendoza to the Raiders is a done deal.
Well, and that's where it leaves, Pittsburgh. What are they going to try to get Russell Wilson back? I mean, not a lot of
the free agent pool isn't great either. Maybe they go get Kyler. He may become available.
That's a big financial commitment to strap your, and part of me wonders.
It worked out so
well. Metcalf before. Metcalf's going to be like, bro, this is, especially if Seattle goes to the NFC Championship game. And so, well, speaking of Seattle, 4 big games, divisional round, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. Well, we will roll through them. The first of the games on the divisional round is Saturday afternoon to 4:30 p.m. Eastern. 12-5 Buffalo Bills, the 6th seed, at the 14-3 Denver Broncos, the 1 seed. This line opened Bills -1.5, kind of similar to what they did to Jacksonville. It is now sitting at Denver -1.5, which probably makes a little more sense, being the number 1 seed and nearly flawless at home. Bills are beat up on a short week. Josh Allen now contending with 3 different injuries. They're not going to have Jordan Poyer. There's a bunch of their guys that they had on IR that still aren't ready to come back. Denver relatively healthy. Their biggest injury going into the bye week was Drake Greenlaw. He is tracking. Looks like he will be back to play. John Franklin Myers back to play. They got their original starting guard back off of IR, so their original starting offensive line, which hasn't been in place since I think it was early November, is going to be ready to roll. So those all seem like promising things, but I am the biggest Denver fan on this show. I find it hard to trust the offense. I love our defense. I find it hard to trust the offense. And Buffalo, nothing makes sense about them winning this game, except for the fact that they have Josh Allen, and I think he is the best player on the field. So what do you make of this matchup?
So the Bills have some deficiencies. They play Superman ball. They were strapping a cape on Josh Allen, and James Cook is Robin. It just, that's how they roll. And then they hope their defense can step up at times. Now, the key, I think, is going to be, will the Bills defense be able to handle the variety of Denver's offense? The Bills give up the 7th most fantasy points to running backs, but they're about 23rd in receptions to running backs. And we've seen RJ Harvey have some great receiving games. He's a very competent receiver. The Bills give up the 6th most rushing yards, though, and and the most rushing TDs. So we've also seen RJ Harvey be good in that area. So there's going to be some opportunities for RJ Harvey to get things done on the ground and a little bit through the air. It'll come down to, will Bo Nix be able to play his type of game? Let me see. Interesting. The Bills give up the 5th most rushing yards to quarterbacks. So that may also bode well for this game for Denver. The Broncos, the questions, do they have enough offense? They have the lowest ranked overall offense left of the 8 playoff teams at 14th in the NFL. They have the 11th ranked passing offense, but the 6th ranked rushing offense. So it feels like they're a good matchup for the Bills in that regard. I like what's going on. Buffalo doesn't have great receivers, and Denver has a phenomenal defensive backfield. So that feels like it's out of the question. Rush yards wise, I think Denver gives up the 2nd fewest rushing yards in the league as well. So that doesn't bode well for Robin, aka James Cook, either. They'll have to play some Superman ball. Let's see what's Buffalo. Where's Denver?
By the way, you and I were both right about the Bills. Gabe Davis did tear his ACL. Terrell Shavers also tore his ACL. Both of them went on to injury reserve. Jordan Poyer, as I mentioned, is out. They're trying to get Curtis Samuel practicing to see if he can go in. Josh Palmer is also on IR. DeMar Hamlin is trying to practice to see if he can come off IR. Ty Johnson, they said, is a long shot to play. Jordan Phillips, their defensive tackle, went on IR. The Bills are beat up.
They are. I mean, they're in worse injury situation than San Francisco, it seems.
Yeah, those two teams could have an injury off. Denver has Lucas Kroll and Drew Sanders, who are on IR. They're not going to be pulled off for this game, but they're both practicing again, so they would potentially be available for the next round, as potentially would J.K. Dobbins. So Denver kind of holding out for that. I don't feel great about it. There are a lot of these games that I think could go either way, but I'm going to take the Broncos at home.
Yeah, I'm taking the Broncos too. I don't want to say, and I don't think it'll be particularly close. I think it feels like a one-score game, but
all of Denver's games have been particularly close.
It feels like a one-score game, but it feels like Denver spends most of the game in the lead.
Next up, the other Saturday game, another team playing on a short week that was kind of miffed about that is the 49ers, 12-5 49ers going to the 14-3 Seattle Seahawks, who are the number one seed in the NFC. The 49ers, as we mentioned, the other most beat up team. Fred Warner tried to practice, but will not come off IR. George Kittle went on to IR. Ricky Pearsall will be officially listed as questionable, but he has a knee injury, has not been practicing. Doesn't feel great there. Seattle did add Sam Darnold to the injury report today, which gives us a little pause. He has an oblique injury, but he is expected to play. Seattle is the biggest favorite of the divisional round. They are -7 at home. And you can kind of understand why, with the 49ers having been beat up. We literally just saw this game only in San Francisco 2 weeks ago, where Seattle fairly well dominated in a 13-3 win. Seattle also beat San Francisco in week 1 in Seattle, 17-13. They are 2-0. It is hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. That's probably something 49ers fans are hanging their hat on. But it is hard to believe that the 49ers, after getting beat up in Philly on a short week, are going to be that much better prepared to face Seattle than they were at home 2 weeks ago.
Well, I think they'll be plenty prepared. They play Seattle twice a year, every year. They know, both teams know what the other team is going to do. Now, what San Fran's going to have to do is work Christian McCaffrey, and Seattle gives up the most receptions to running backs in the NFL. And Christian McCaffrey is the best receiving back in the NFL. So I would expect a lot of that. Jake Tongas, we were talking about him being banged up. Is he going to be healthy? Do you remember?
I did not see him on the injury report, so he should be fine. He's not one of the 95 players listed on their injury report.
So the passing game is going to run. It's going to be Jake Tongas and Juwan Jennings. We'll see what happens with Ricky Pearsall. I think he's probably out again.
Could be Demarcus Robinson again. He was the best receiver they had in the wild card round.
So hopefully, if I'm the 49ers, it's like, please let Trent Williams be healthy, because they need it. Their defense, well, Sam Darnold was, I think, 4th in the league in touchdown passes. He had the 3rd most interceptions behind Geno and gosh, I forget who the other guy was that I had one more interception than Darnold. But so Darnold isn't afraid to throw the ball to the other team. That being said, San Francisco doesn't get many sacks. They only had, I think, 20 sacks on the year. They don't get many interceptions. And so with the injuries they have on defense, it ends up being kind of fluky for them to pressure the quarterback. So aside from the fact that Darnold maybe gets rattled a little more than a lot of other quarterbacks at this stage, it feels like the 49ers are, they're the classic, they have a puncher's chance. Brock Purdy can make some plays. He's mobile. He can get out of the pocket. And when you get Demarcus Robinson and Juwan Jennings both at 6'3", they're both big wide receivers. They can go up and get the ball. It's San Fran has some weapons, but I don't think they have what it takes on defense. And you're right. It is hard to beat a team 3 times in a season, but I feel like Seattle's up for it, and I'm going Seahawks.
Yeah, 7 might be too big of a spread, but I am also taking the Seahawks. I think it's too many injuries for San Francisco as well. The Sunday games, the early one at 3 Eastern is the 12-5 Houston Texans, who won on Monday night and are the 5 seed, at the 14-3 New England Patriots, the number 2 seed. New England favored by 3 at home, which probably makes sense. I think these two teams are pretty evenly matched. Both of them have pretty good defenses and pretty unpredictable offenses. I think the biggest unpredictable for both teams might be the quarterbacks. CJ Stroud had a miserable game in Pittsburgh, but it really didn't matter because the Steelers couldn't do anything. Drake May had a pretty miserable first half against the Chargers, but looked a little bit better in the second half. What do you make of this matchup? I assume this one's going to be in the teens.
Yeah, this is going to be a defensive battle, and Houston has the better defense. That being said, I think Drake May is the better improvisational quarterback. He can make a little more happen when he gets pressure, gets out. Nico Collins is out. I think he's still in concussion protocol.
He's still listed as questionable. He is in concussion protocol. It would be hard, but not impossible for him to get cleared since they were a late Monday game and they're an early Sunday game.
Yeah, it's, honestly, I don't think Houston frets too much about not having Nico Collins. They've liked what they've gotten out of Jaden Higgins. Having Christian Kirk flash last week, I think made him go, hey, wait, we forgot about this guy. And hell, even Woody Marks had a monster game on the ground. But with their overall receiving core, the issue is going to be, can the Houston offensive line handle Mike Vrabel's pressure schemes? And that's going to be tough. There's going to be some Buckeye on Buckeye crime between Mike Vrabel and CJ Stroud. That's for dang sure. I feel like as good as Houston's defense is, they're going to end up they're not necessarily going to be able to handle the balance, and I don't think the Patriots are going to have to score 30 points to win the game. That being said, I don't think Houston will have to score 30 points to win it either. So it definitely feels like a 21-17 kind of game.
I was going to say it could be the first to 20. With how things are going, because that Houston game on Monday night, you look at them, oh my God, they had 30 points. Well, that was like a 7-6 game going into the fourth quarter, and 14 of them kind of come going away. And the same thing, it was 9-3 in New England going into the late in the fourth quarter, and they hit a touchdown, to Henry there late in the fourth quarter that kind of put the game out of reach. So I would not be surprised if this one's tight. We mentioned Nico Collins could be a long shot. For the Patriots, their best corner, Christian Gonzalez, also in concussion protocol. Will he be able to get cleared in time? Harold Landry, limited with a knee injury. Morgan Moses, their tackle, has not been practicing. So they have a couple injury woes. Offensive line would definitely be a place you'd want to have all your best options available when you're going against Houston, because we have seen them cave in some great teams. I mean, we saw what they did to Josh Allen, who is considered a somewhat unsackable quarterback. So I think this is going to be a fun and a fierce one. Ultimately, I think the Patriots will eke it out at home.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, a very, 3-4 point game. And I'm going to give the edge to the Patriots. I just think the Patriots, with Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson, they have the ability to grind it out on the ground and provide some explosiveness with those backs to offset the sort of nondescript receiving core. I say, and it pains me to say that, given my love for Kayshon Boutte, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Drake May rush for 60 yards and a touchdown or two. So
he was their leading rusher in their first playoff game. So
I'm going Patriots with you.
The final game, which takes place at 6:30 Eastern on Sunday, so not quite a night game, but a little bit later than the normal window, is the 5-seed Los Angeles Rams, 12-5, at the number 2 seed Chicago Bears, 11-6. Both these teams won on Saturday, the week before. The Rams are favored as they were in the wild card round, even though they are on the road. They are only -3.5, though, a lot lower than the 10.5 they were getting in Carolina. Neither of these teams have big significant injuries. I think this, to me, comes down to whether the Bears can hold the Rams offense down early enough in the game to give themselves a chance late, because it seems like the Bears are one of many teams that are late in this playoffs that really only come to life in the fourth quarter. And they almost spotted Green Bay too many points to come back. I would be weary if they did that same thing against the Rams. How do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, so the Rams have outscored the Bears by about 80 points on the year. And that's, if I'm the Bears and Ben Johnson, I don't feel like I can take that chance. The rushing offenses are fairly close. The Bears were third in the NFL. The Rams were seventh. But that Rams passing game, the number one passing game in the NFL, versus the Bears' 10th ranked passing game. Now, Matthew Stafford had almost 20 more touchdown passes than Caleb Williams, with only one more interception. Williams about 7 points below Stafford in completion percentage. I think you mentioned yesterday, or Tuesday, that Williams was like the 31st ranked completion percentage quarterback. That's while the Rams defense isn't an elite tier defense like, say, Houston, they've got some guys that can make some plays. And that's what Sean McVay and Chris Shula are kind of hanging their hat on, is that they're going to be able to make some plays. One, because Caleb Williams feeds into chaos. I don't want to say he gets rattled, but he believes so much in his ability to be able to make a play. He isn't afraid to get out of the pocket. So he could get dinged up running. He could make a bad throw on the run. He could, make a read and think I can get more. I'm going to go to the next one and end up taking a bad sack. Those are all things that when we see Caleb Williams do those this year, we're like, yeah, that's kind of where he's at in his development. That being said, we can see Caleb Williams throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns and run for 60 yards too. So he's got a broad range of outcomes. The Rams, I think, are going to try to grind the clock out with Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, and then they're going to take shots. They've got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, two of the best, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL with Puka, and a top 10, top 12 wide receiver, even at 32 years old, in Devontae Adams. So they're going to get their opportunities. They're going to take their shots. But we've seen it before. When the running game gets going for the Rams, they're almost impossible to defend. You get Kyren Williams, and while Blake Corum is more explosive, Kyren Williams plays very similar to David Montgomery, other than he's just 30 pounds lighter. But it's all about vision and making the right reads and making the right cuts. Kyren Williams is going to, he'll turn 5 into 15. He maybe isn't going to turn 10 into 60, but he'll turn 5 into 15 over and over and over again. I think this game, I think, has the widest range of, it could be really tight or it could be a blowout. This is the one that has the most variability on that scale, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think Chicago will make it fun, but I worry about some of their tendencies. And, there was a reason a lot of us thought the Rams might have been the best team in the NFC despite being the 5 seed. So I'm taking the Rams, and I think that's going to set up a hell of a NFC championship game with Rams Seahawks 3.
Yeah, I'd love to, even I'd love to be contrarian in any of these games, but I just don't see, picking different from you in these games. The only argument could be made was, you're just doing it to be different. And I'd be like, yeah, well, I'm picking the Rams too.
I went back and forth some, but we always usually see one road team win, at least in the divisional round too. I feel more 50-50 on the road teams on Sunday. I really looked at that Houston, New England, because there is a world to me where Houston's defense just takes New England apart, because they also don't have, the things you worried about with Pittsburgh, aside from a 42-year-old immobile quarterback, are the same. You don't know what you're going to get out of the running game of New England. They don't really have an elite wide receiver or passing game. They have some questions on the offensive line. I just think Mike Vrabel was enough for me there. I like Ben Johnson. I think Chicago is trending in the right direction. I think in some ways they are a little lucky they won in the wild card round.
Oh, yeah.
Because I watched that game and I thought they were on the road to getting trucked. And
it looked like it.
Green Bay just lost its mind. And I don't know if Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford have that same tendency. So
they do not.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for the divisional round preview. Before we get out of here, though, I did mention national championship game. Miami, who was a 10 seed, at the number 1 seed, Indiana Hoosiers. That game Monday night. Pretty long layoff for both teams, because I believe Miami played Thursday, Indiana played Friday last week. How are you feeling about national championship? Is it Mendoza time?
I think it is. Carson Beck has been in college a long time, and he brings experience to the table. They've got a very explosive receiver, number 10. His name is escaping me right now. I love their running back, Fletcher. He runs hard. But I saw up close and personal when Indiana and Ohio State played that Indiana's defense gets after it. It was amazing to watch. Indiana's got this cornerback. His last name is Pons, Isaiah Pons, maybe, or something Pons. And he covered Jeremiah Smith. He's 5'9". And while Smith had a good game, Pons also had a good game. Turns out they were high school teammates. So they've played against each other a lot. And Pons was not afraid of him. And I think that whole team is like that, with that Kurt Signetti kind of Google me bravado. And while Mendoza's this great, humble, likable guy, they don't have a terrific running game, but they do have a good passing game. Miami's got some players on defense. I can't buy into Carson Beck upsetting Indiana. I wish I could, as somebody who Indiana has beaten twice this year, but it feels like Indiana, and it doesn't feel like it's going to be particularly close.
Yeah, and the line here is Indiana -8.5, so they are definitely heavily favored. We will see. I think I would pick Indiana too. They just feel like they have been kind of the team of destiny. They kind of came out of nowhere, but had been a team of destiny the last month. So, well, 3 good days of football to look forward to. If people have some free time before they get to those games on Saturday, what can they do?
Swing on by your favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a subscribe, give us a follow, like all that fun stuff.
We do appreciate it. We will see you guys on Tuesday talking about the big winners here that set the stage. We'll see if any more coaching vacancies get filled as well. Until then, enjoy the divisional round.